The goal of the Hammer Museum's public programs is quite simple. We're here to bring together all the communities of Los Angeles and the incredible brain trust at UCLA, and to be a forum for genuine discovery and dialogue. For those of you who are visiting the Hammer for the first time, you might not be aware that we offer more than 250 free programs a year to our community, from conversations like tonight to concerts, film screenings, lectures, poetry readings, political discussions, book clubs, meditation sessions, and much more, trying to address the many facets of contemporary culture. I hope that you will take one of the Hammer calendars home with you tonight that you hopefully got when you came in the door, and come back and visit us often. And now to say a few more words is my good friend and Hammer board member and XPRIZE trustee, Eric Israelian.
Thank you, Claudia, and I want to thank Claudia and the entire XPRIZE team, for particularly Marissa Christensen, who's been really invaluable in helping to put this event together. I'd like to thank Annie Philbin, the director of the Hammer Museum, and the entire Hammer family for making public programs like this possible. And to thank all of you for taking time out of your busy days to join us today for another exciting Hammer conversation. The Hammer plays a unique role in our community as a cultural center for the community, and has a direct link to the university as a public art unit within the university. And it really is unique in terms of how a museum can function as a cultural center for the community. So we're really excited to have public programs like this, and to have public programs to be free for all participants. So thank you again for making the Hammer what it is. It's an exciting time for XPRIZE and UCLA as well, because this is the year that we're going to launch a collaborative with UCLA and XPRIZE called the Next Prize, which will be a collection of potential prize development, for example, in organogenesis, and opportunities for collaboration between faculty members, students, and the XPRIZE family to foster ideas and exchange dialogue and have opportunities for collaboration and innovation. And that's really what you're here to listen to and learn about today, is innovation. And universities are oftentimes a launching pad for innovation. And this is a night where we bring together the Hammer, UCLA, and XPRIZE to accomplish just that. So thank you again. Please come back for more, and we're excited to have you here tonight.
So now I'd like to introduce our two guest speakers, Peter Diamandis and Seth Green, who come from totally different occupations, but are unified by a passion for space exploration. Sorry, I'm missing something here. Seth has starred in numerous films and television series, including all three Austin Powers films, The Italian Job, Party Monster, Without a Paddle, Radio Days, Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and dozens more. He's the co-creator, executive producer, writer, director, and primary voice talent of Robot Chicken, the stop-motion animated pop culture parody television series that airs on the cable channel Adult Swim. Green has been singled out for many Emmy voiceover nominations, and just last week he was nominated for 2 more, bringing his total to 5 nominations. Seth is a self-described future astronaut. He corresponds regularly with the astronauts at the space station via Twitter. He does PSAs for NASA, and last week he went on an XPRIZE zero-gravity flight, also known as the Vomit Comet, with Peter Diamandis. Dr. Peter Diamandis is the chairman and CEO of XPRIZE, best known for the $10 million Ansari XPRIZE for private spaceflight, and the $10 million Progressive Automotive XPRIZE for cars that can get the equivalent of 100 miles a gallon. XPRIZE is now launching prizes in exploration, life sciences, energy, and education. Diamandis also founded and ran many of the leading entrepreneurial companies in the private space exploration sector, including Zero Gravity Corporation, the Rocket Racing League, and Space Adventures. As the co-founder and chairman of Singularity University, a Silicon Valley-based institution partnered with NASA, Google, Autodesk, and Nokia, Diamandis counsels the world's top organizations on how to use incentivized innovation to accelerate their objectives. Peter attended MIT, where he received his degrees in molecular genetics and aerospace engineering, and Harvard Medical School, where he received his medical degree. So now, please join me in welcoming Peter Diamandis and Seth Green.
Come to have a polite conversation with you. How you guys doing? Everybody fasten their seatbelts? So it's meant to be very informal, so I'll keep it, I mean, we can keep it really informal.
Mr. Green, yes.
Yes, Mr. Diamandis. Peter and I met through online dating, as most people do. No, it was really simple. I'm really interested in space. I'm really interested in the furtherment of the human species. I'm interested in our consistent evolution. And I'm interested in general optimism for us, you know, as an organism on this planet. And I read an article about the XPRIZE, and I just thought it sounded so cool and innovative and exciting. And I read about the programs that they were putting together, in addition to already having funded the innovation of a suborbital spaceflight vehicle, to coming up with, you know, water cleaning programs, to just general problem solving for the world at large. I thought, oh, this is a really cool company. I'd like to get involved with them. And then, as I do on occasion, I said, am I famous enough to call Peter Diamandis and have him take a meeting with me? And the answer was yes. So
It's amazing what Google will tell you.
isn't it great? So that was it. I called Peter and I was like, hey man, do you want to chat? I don't know what it is, but I think we like each other. I think we're on the same page. I'm pretty sure we both want to be the guys that get to space, and we're kind of size qualified. So maybe we're best friends and don't know it yet. And that was my approach, guys. So I implore you, whenever you find yourself in that position, swing away. What did you think when I called you?
Well, I remember our first meeting, and we were in my last XPRIZE office, which is...
All right, you guys were moving.
We moved. We're now over in Culver City. A lot more beautiful space.
Did you put in a slide?
No, we don't. We have a spaceship, though. We have a half-scale Spaceship One in our lobby.
Oh, yeah.
Which is perfect size for my 2 kids.
Not that I want to get off topic about this, but just speaking of the Spaceship One hanging, it's at the Air and Space Museum.
It is.
Like, it's actually there.
The actual real one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so cool, man.
You know,
come on.
It is really cool, but it was very funny because when the XPRIZE got won 10 years ago this October, a team of interns inside the XPRIZE went and asked Burt Rutan permission to take the original molds from Spaceship One and make replicas. And so literally a bunch of interns, college students, graduate students set up in this warehouse this replica factory, and they built 6 replicas of Spaceship One. And I've got this one photo I love that shows 6 Spaceship Ones, and I go, secret spaceship factory under development. And one of those is now hanging in Building 43 at Google. Larry saw it and said, I want it.
I saw it in the internship.
Yeah, that was cool. It's a good movie.
A popular picture. Vince Vaughn, Owen Wilson.
Yeah.
Remember those guys?
So, yeah, no, Spaceship One's hanging right next to the Spirit of St. Louis. I remember dreaming about that, thinking, you know, someday, wouldn't it be cool if... And there it is.
Yeah. When I went to that museum and I saw the, I don't know, I'm sure it's just a replica of the Wright brothers' first flight vehicle. And you stand next to it and you see it in scale to yourself, and you realize like what it took for a person to say, I'm gonna ride that thing. And it's so exciting that it's less than 100 years to go from that, hey, how do we get off this planet, to we're building ships that break orbit without the conventional rocket assistance. Yeah. That's amazing. That's really amazing.
Yep. And what's interesting, though, of course, is a lot of the early progress in, for example, with the Wright brothers or Lindbergh and such, were done by such a small group of individuals. And then there was this period of time where there's this giant expansion to large multinationals and governments. Now we're back down to a small group of individuals. And I think because real progress takes extraordinary risk. And
the bigger a company is, the less likely they are.
The more they have to lose, the more lawyers they have.
And the more decisions they make by committee instead of anybody having an innovative passion that says, I'm going to follow this.
Who says, screw it, I'm just going to go do it because it has to be done. And I'll risk my life, or I'll risk my company's reputation, which is ultimately what real breakthroughs require.
Well, isn't that, we were just talking a little bit, like one of my favorite people currently happening right now, Elon Musk, who consistently puts his money where his mouth is, has consistently backed innovative concepts that he believes are planet and our people need. And then he spends his own time at great risk to his own personal fortune and his reputation following those flights of fancy.
Yeah. And
it's awesome.
So I knew Elon back in 2000. I met him. Or 2001. He just sold to PayPal to eBay, and we're
PayPal. What's that?
Yeah, it's this. It's this precursor to Bitcoin or something like that.
Oh, Bitcoin. Yeah, I've got like 400,000 of those.
Yeah, dude.
It was a
Cough up.
It was a slighted transaction. The money, where did it go? I guess it was in my pocket.
Elon's first. It's interesting how he got into the space business, because his first goal was he was passionate about the internet, passionate about energy, and passionate about space. And he and Adeo Resi, who's another trustee of the XPRIZE, are both trustees, said, NASA's stuck. Nothing is happening. The last 40 years have been just really, peak and then slow decline. And we need to do something about it. And so their first thought back then was to embarrass NASA into doing something. And I don't know if you know the story, but his first notion was they wanted to put a mouse in orbit around Mars. No shit. Their goal was to buy a rocket, a Russian rocket, and then put a mouse in orbit around Mars. And the average lifespan of a mouse would have it be able to get there, but it would die on orbit. And they thought that would not be a good thing. PETA would be going after them. A lot of people who don't want mice dying around.
Unless it's like a really special mouse like Stuart Little, and then you think, oh, he could definitely pilot that thing. He could get it back to Earth, and probably make a pretty compelling reality show in the interim.
So the next idea was, can we land a greenhouse on Mars, and take that picturesque view of a beautiful, flowering green plant on a Martian terrain? And so that was their goal. And then they went to look at buying a rocket. And they went to Russia, which is the most capitalist space program on the planet. And
I'm not entirely sure all their financials are above board, though.
True. I didn't say it was the most legal space program on the planet.
Hasn't the price of that ticket gone up like $40 million in the last 10 years?
There's a reason for that.
It's labor. It's the labor
costs.
Right. So don't you think that's sort of a
You want to finish the story? Or
I'm sorry.
God, this...
I'm like Captain Segway.
this one.
I'm like Commander Tangent.
That's good. So he found out that the cost of Russian rockets were pretty ridiculous. I don't know if you guys know this. If you had to ask can I get a consumer poll here? What percentage of the cost of a rocket is the cost of its fuel? Okay, so if you had to buy the rocket fuel on a rocket to go to space, what percentage of 100% of cost do you think it is for the fuel in a rocket? How many people say it's
rockets
over
are pretty
50,
big? They're probably full.
Over
gases at like $4.60 a gallon. Probably takes like 700 million gallons.
How many people think it's over 50%? Over 50%. How many people think it's over 75%? How about if I told you it was 0.25%? What if I told you the cost of fuel is $250,000 for a $100 million launch? And if I asked you what it costs so much, you said it earlier.
Yeah.
It's labor.
But that's why I gotta wonder. The conversation that I had with Elon was about the reusable rockets, about the self-landing systems, about capsules that were designed the same way that Apollo was designed, with the same intent. And thank you.
You see, the more you drink, the funner it gets.
Well, maybe for us, the audience, unless they like watching trains crash. But that was the conversation that we had. NASA's got so little funding that they can't spend any money to actually do anything. They can't put money towards R&D or innovation. They're reusing all the same old tech. That was the thing that shocked me the most the times that I've been to NASA and went to launches, is that just a dude like turning a wrench on a piece of metal that he hand hammered 10 minutes ago, and all of their computers are equivalent to like a Tandy or a Compaq, and it's just kind of frightening when my phone has 100 times the computing power of the central system of the Discovery shuttle. You're thinking something is disproportionate here. And so the fact that it became a privatized industry, I think, is going to push us faster towards like commuter space flight, towards building destinations, towards making hotels, and towards my favorite goal, spring break on Mars. Everybody goes to Vegas. People are like, remember when people discovered Cabo? And they were like, oh shit, guys, go to Cabo. Spring break in Cabo. Spring break on Mars. When Atlantis sets up a resort on Mars. It's not going to be like Total Recall, guys. It's going to be way cooler than that.
Yeah, it is sad though, and for anybody who thought when the space shuttle ended, it was the end of the space program, completely opposite. It is just beginning. We are now entering the most epic period of exploration ever. It really is, and because you're right, you know, the Curiosity rover on Mars has 2 microprocessors on it that are same microprocessors in your Apple computer circa 1991. And it turns out that NASA refuses to take a risk. So they have this thing called test readiness levels, that I can't fly something until it's already flown, which really screws up a lot of situations. So
you said one of my favorite things, because we talked about, and I love NASA as an organization. I think they're only hamstrung by their budgeting and, you know, all of the politicking that comes with a government organization. But you said they take something that is extraordinary and insist that it is nominal.
No,
every time
they take something that's phenomenal, and call it nominal.
It
really, it's
true. Kind of sad where they're like, all right, guys, we launched a bunch of human beings off the planet. They are now currently orbiting the planet in search of deeper exploration. And we'll report back in about 25 minutes. You're just like...
and it's nominal.
They could be, all systems are functioning and nominal. Like, you can make that so much more exciting.
Yeah.
But I want to make a reality show on the ISS and just show people what life is like for the astronauts. Because I think that would actually
You can do that, you know. It's $54 million a flight.
Unless you get, like, Sundance or Nat Geo to finance it. And then I insist that I'm the only celebrity astronaut that's willing to make the journey. Because Lance Bass ain't going to do it.
So we do have... So in all reality, one of the companies I had the pleasure of co-founding is called Space Adventures, and you know Space Adventures. We've sent 8 clients to the space station so far. Our 9th client actually will be our most famous. It's the opera singer Sarah Brightman. And very cool. She's paying $54 million to go. I know, dude, listen, you could go.
Guys, imagine when she's doing a regular show for a year at the Sands on Mars. Cirque du Soleil on Mars.
But I do a concert from orbit over, you know,
Are you going
countries.
To? Is that a plan?
She's talking about what she'll do, but I think performing on orbit is definitely part of the equation.
Yeah, that'd be amazing.
Yeah, and she is extraordinary.
It's not far away. Like when we went out to Mojave and looked at all the different people that are building rockets and all the different ways that people are going to get off planet, it'll be interesting to see. And then, did you see that movie Elysium?
I did.
I don't think that's...
No,
I don't think that's that's sort of like...
Hold it 1 second. I've got a bone to pick with you. You represent Hollywood here.
I do.
You do. It's better than me, closer than I am.
Okay.
So why the hell is every space movie like this dystopian? They're going to eat us, kill us, destroy us. I mean, this is
a real conversation that I've been having with a lot of people, because it's been almost 20 years that there seems to be this aggressive...
I refuse to see Gravity for a while. It's like yet another space disaster.
But it's bigger than that. There hasn't been a positive alien interaction movie since E.T. I'm not kidding, guys. If you think about Close Encounters, think about the mood of the world, the mood of the planet. When you see something like E.T., everyone's like, oh, maybe aliens are out there. Maybe I could have a psychic adventure with one of them. Instead, that's turned into Independence Day. It's turned into even Edge of Tomorrow. It's even Ender's Game, which is an old book, but a modern movie. It's all about negative aliens coming to kill us. I just think we're hitting that chord a little hard. Like, where's the...
imagination.
Where's the story about our shared interests? You know, the things that make us similar as opposed to the light years that separate us.
We need Carl Sagan to come back.
Well, I mean, I've got the digital to reanimate his corpse, but we could do some motion capture and like have his skeleton animated. It just wouldn't be really Carl.
But it really is true. I mean, one of the 2 issues right now between Hollywood and the space world, if we represent that in a small way, is that the television and film Hollywood world makes space so, first of all, phenomenal, that it makes normal space, which is really hard stuff, look boring in comparison.
Yeah. Every show that I've seen that depicts that, it's always some like really negative version of it. It's always, we ran out our resources, the Earth became uninhabitable, we've moved to a space station or some exoplanet, we've got to figure out a way to kill 700 people so that we don't run out of air. It's like all these negative. You guys aren't watching The 100? Nobody? The 100, new show on CW? No. They're all negative shows. Where's the ET? Where's the little kid with the Reese's Pieces?
But I do think, you know, what space represents is the ultimate heroic journey, right? We are an exploring species. If you think about us, we are dominant on this planet, having explored every niche, because deep inside us, it's not a genotype, it's more of a phenotype of an exploration need, right? And we need to explore. And it's the heroic journey, and space represents sort of one of the extreme dimensions of exploration. And I think that whatever we become thousands of years from now, millions of years from now, when we look back on these next few decades, these will be the decades where the human race moves irreversibly off the planet forever.
I agree with you.
Right here, right now.
Not that we won't leave people behind. Not that we won't continue to inhabit this in one form
or
another.
No, we will. This will be, but it's the species moving. The last time this happened is when the lungfish moved out of the oceans onto land. It's it happens once in a while. We're alive during the most extraordinary time ever.
Don't you think that's why it's so scary? Don't you think that's because actually breaking the gravity of this planet and then sort of recognizing the infiniteness of the universe, that's got to be overwhelming to people to even comprehend, let alone imagine exploring. I think about driving down to the beach and I'm like, oh man, it's so far. when we're talking about like 6 months to fly to Mars, we got to resolve that travel. What do you think it's going to be? Is it going to be a propulsion solution, or what do you think is going to cut that down?
I think actually,
Captain Tangent, guys, I warned you.
I'm curious. How many? If I gave you 100% guarantee that you could go to Mars and live there, but you were not coming back, how many folks would go on that trip? Okay. So I do this typically in grad schools, and I'll get 7. They're not married, they don't have kids yet. 75% of the audience will raise their hand. I say about 50% chance of coming back. You'll still get most of those people, and there's a lot of people who want to go, even if it's risky.
Yeah.
And I think, interestingly enough, we have a moral and ethical obligation as a species. And I had the chance, as you know, back 7 years ago, to fly Stephen Hawking into zero G, which was extraordinary.
If you haven't seen the video of that, it's like one of the most enormously emotional things I've seen.
A company does zero gravity flights, and we were operating for about 3 years. It took us 11 years to get approval from the FAA to operate. And we now operate all of NASA's zero G training. But when I met Stephen Hawking through the XPRIZE, who's one of our advisors, one of our prizes, he said through his computer, can you get me a flight into space? And I said, no, but I can get you into zero G. And we announced it, and I got a call from a government organization the next day. I won't mention who they are, but their initials were the FAA. And we said, you can't do that. It took 6 months to get approvals finally. And we did, and he said the reason he was doing this was he wanted to bring attention to the importance of opening up space, because he felt that if we as a species did not become a multiplanetary species, we did not have a future.
We're doomed, yeah.
Ultimately, from whether it's an asteroid impact or a pandemic or whatever the case might be, it's all of our eggs are in one basket.
Overpopulation, lack of resources. Although, if anybody's read Peter's book, if anybody's read Abundance,
overpopulation isn't an issue. Resources are not an issue. But we can have.
If anybody's read Abundance, anybody read Abundance? Because the first conversation that we had was like, hey, we seem hopelessly fucked. How are we going to survive? And he was like, oh, no, it's all good.
And the data does show us that.
Yeah, it's great. It's great. Well, we were just talking backstage about one of your other projects, which I think is so interesting. I got to go to that was actually part of the XPRIZE Adventure Series, where we went to meet Dr. Craig Venter and see the facilities where they were sequencing the human genome and synthetic genomics, and sort of talking about the innovations in biology and medical and the ways in which we'll be solving things as we evolve, and just how fast that technology is moving, how inspiring and encouraging it is, how generally reassuring it is. Although it'll be interesting to see where those debates come from. When we've got like all our power resolved through solar, everyone's got a replicator, the food and water, like you get
You've been watching that TV show, haven't you?
Well, you know, we like that show. Do you have a tricorder XPRIZE?
Yeah, we do.
Talk to me about bringing pop culture into reality.
I mean, listen, if anybody wants to know what our blueprint is for XPRIZE, it's just, it's taking the Star Trek universe and making it real.
Well, I'm far more optimistic than I ever was.
And you good reason to. And that one of the problems, and I speak about this all the time, is that we're living in a world where the news media is a drug pusher and negative news is their drug. And on every device we have, we're constantly bombarded by negative news. But the world is a much better place than the news media gives us evidence for.
It's our own fault. You know, we're very attracted to negative information.
We're genetically predisposed to pay 10 times more attention to negative information than positive.
Was it you that I was talking about the fight or flight? The biology of the fight or flight thing? How we're, like, you as a human being are programmed to be aware of potential future conflicts so that you can avoid them. You like get a sense of violence and danger that's impending so that you can avoid it. And so you're sort of pre-programmed to seek that information out. And we are getting such a volume of negative and scary and potentially harmful information that it's actually disrupting our biological ability to protect ourselves mentally. Is that, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I've stopped watching the news.
Oh, yeah. Although I saw that show Fargo, which was really good. Do you want to talk at all about what you're doing with Craig? Because I thought that sounded really cool.
Sure, it's not fully on subject.
Is it public? Can we talk about that?
Yeah, it's totally public. In March 4th of this year, I'm proud myself, Craig Venter, and a fellow Bob Hurry announced a new company called Human Longevity, Inc. It's a company that is building the largest genome sequencing facility on the planet and regenerative stem cell technologies, and our mission is to make 100 years old and you 60.
Did you guys see the Michael Bay movie, The Island? So it's like that, but without harvesting organs from other human beings. It's basically like all of the vitamins that make your cells organically rejuvenate. It's all of the natural things that are in your body.
But along those lines, we have in design right now, we've not announced it yet, but we have in design right now an organogenesis XPRIZE, right? Where we can go from a person's skin cell to a pluripotent stem cell to a transplantable liver, for example.
I'm sorry if you didn't mean to publicize that. I've already tweeted it.
But honestly, it's like, tell me what you think of as impossible, and I will show you how these technologies are now becoming possible. And we have in the space arena, our mission is, a lot of times people need an excuse to do something extraordinary. Because we have heroes that we see, whether it's a billionaire who started a company or a scientist or whatever, and it says, who, me? And I mean, at the XPRIZE, our mission is to inspire people who now have access to these extraordinary technologies to take on and do heroic things, to do things that most everybody thinks is crazy and impossible, and then go and do it, right? Because I'm fond of saying the day before something is truly a breakthrough, it's a crazy idea. So 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 1994, I read Spirit of St. Louis, Lindbergh's book. This is sort of a little backstory for the XPRIZE, for those of you who don't know it. And I learned that Lindbergh crosses the Atlantic in 1927, not on a whim, which is what I thought, but in fact to win a $25,000 prize. And I'm saying, wow, this guy puts up $25,000, 9 different teams make this attempt, and he doesn't back any of the losers, but he automatically backs the winner. What an amazing mechanism. And Lindbergh was by far the most unlikely guy to pull it off. And I said, I can open up space, which is my passion since I was 9 years old, to want to go fly into space. And I gave up on NASA being the mechanism to do it because your chances are 1 in 1,000 and a whole bunch of other reasons.
Plus you got to know a lot of math. A lot of math.
And you have to do what you're told, which was not really good for me.
I've never been really good at that,
yeah. So in 94, I read that and said, hey, let's put up a prize for private space flight, build a spaceship that has a pilot and 2 paying passengers to go up to space. And it was won in 2004, October 4th, 2004. It's our 10th anniversary is coming up in just in a couple months.
Big party? You like?
We are going to have a
like
huge,
prom theme?
We're going to have a huge party. Richard Branson, Paul Allen. It's going to be an amazing event here in LA, and there will be seats available for those who are interested. Go to the xprize.org website or see the ladies in the back. But honestly, it was big, and on the heels of that, we said, okay, what else can we inspire people to do? And so we've started some amazing things. We've got a Google Lunar XPRIZE. I got Larry and Sergey to kick in $30 million.
What do you think is going to come first? Is it people? Because it's almost like the field of dreams theory, where if you build something, people will go to it. Do you think it's going to be tourism that gets it first? Like with the
so I
like
thought it was,
for
I thought it
construct
was
on the
tourism,
moon.
right? That's why, I mean, Zero G, XPRIZE, Space Adventures. My mission and passion in life is opening up space, and I always thought it was going to be tourism. And so my playbook in the early 90s was tourism companies, and all three came out of that. And it was the realization that that's working, but really slowly. And that the only thing that has really ever driven humanity to explore new frontiers consistently is resources.
Well, that's a perfect segue.
And that's the new business plan.
That's a perfect segue. We should talk about that. So when we first started talking, Peter says, hey, I'm trying to put this company together. It's called Planetary Resources. What we're going to do, there's asteroids all over space just floating around.
How he's going to describe this.
What's that? I don't know if this is exactly how you described it, but this is how I interpret it. Hey, listen, there are mineral and resource-rich asteroids just orbiting our planet and flying around all the time. And if we could create the technology to not only observe, classify, capture, and mine them, we're in really great shape. And I said, that sounds a lot like Armageddon. Do I get to play Ben Affleck or Bruce Willis? But we both get to go, right? But I thought it sounded crazy and yet so smart. When everyone's saying, oh, we don't have enough resources on the planet, it's really innovative to say, yeah, well, just off planet, there's tons of stuff floating around.
So, I mean, scarcity is contextual, right? If you have a giant orange tree, is how I speak about it in my book, Abundance, and you've plucked all the low-hanging oranges from the tree, you're all of a sudden, oranges are scarce until you invent a ladder. And then it gets you access to the rest of the oranges. And so resources on Earth are just resources on Earth. It's like, the Europeans looking to the New World and saying, oh, these resources there. And then you go there and you have access. And the American settlers looking towards the West Coast for timber and land and oil and gold and so forth. And the fact of the matter is the Earth is a crumb in a supermarket filled with resources. And the asteroids are the near-Earth asteroids are the low-hanging fruit. And so some of these asteroids are rich in hydrogen and oxygen, which is rocket fuel. So if you got a 100-meter, less than the size of this building, 100-meter, 4 or 5 of these auditoriums, carbonaceous chondrite asteroid, it would have enough hydrogen and oxygen on it to have fueled every space shuttle mission from the beginning. And one, half-kilometer nickel-iron asteroid has enough platinum on it to outstrip anything ever mined in the history of Earth.
To imbalance the value of platinum on the planet.
Yeah.
I'm in, dude. I'm totally. You got my money. Well, so what's the plan? I mean, you still want to get to space, don't you? Don't you think that's still a possibility?
Oh, absolutely. I've got a ticket on Virgin.
Oh, you did? But that's still, I mean, like everybody gives me a hard time about this. But as excited as I am about that innovation, because I think it's critical for people to see that it's possible. It's just like watching somebody ride Viper at Magic Mountain. You're like, is that guy going to die? Oh, he's not? All right, I'll ride it. You know what I mean? That's what the Virgin flight is doing, is proving that people, probably famous people, will fly off planet, and that'll make it more comfortable for everybody else to think about it.
Let me give you the math. Okay. So right now, the ticket on a flight to the space station is $54 million. It's a third. It's, I have some takers. We have 2 seats coming up.
Guys, if we pool our money,
in all on,
can we go as a group? Can we squeeze in one seat?
Let me give you the actual numbers because they're fascinating. With the Russian Space Adventure also has a mission for a cislunar orbit. So you go to space station for 10 days, then you dock with a booster and you go You ignite on a free return around the moon.
No kidding. I haven't even heard about
100 and I think the number is around 150 million for a seat.
What's the flight system? So it's the Soyuz.
It's a Soyuz. It's a Soyuz was
But then
built.
you take the Soyuz around the moon too.
You take the Soyuz around the moon. It was built for so in orbit you're 17,000 miles an hour. From a lunar return you're at 25,000 miles an hour as an entry. Anyway, that's not the point. It's expensive. It's expensive.
I don't want to ride that rocket. Every astronaut I've talked to about that rocket is just like.
On Virgin, it's today it's $200,000 on a seat.
The down on it is something like 15 grand or something crazy.
250,000 now for a seat on Virgin. Listen,
I heard he gave one to Kutcher for free. I was outraged, furious about it.
So listen, come on October 4th. Ritual will be there. Maybe we could work something out.
I already gave him shit in Philadelphia, but I'll come. I'll come. Yeah.
So, but here's the numbers that's interesting. If you go to any mature transportation system, a car, a boat, or a plane that's reusable, the cost of operating that system is 3 times the cost of fuel. So our 727, it just works out. A car, a train, or a plane. You can just sit home, figure out your monthly fuel burn for your car. Actually, our Teslas are not in the equation.
I've got that all on panels,
Okay,
actually, at this point.
But
you know, the sun is a great source of fuel, guys.
dude, focus.
Sorry.
Focus. Right here. So eventually a Soyuz, which if a Soyuz or a Falcon 9 were fully reusable, the cost of fuel is about $250,000. Call it $1 million. It carries 7 people. So the price could, if it was fully reusable and you got it for at the cost, you can get the price down to a couple $100,000 a seat to go to orbit. But here's what's interesting. I'm going to take you back to your high school math. If you remember your high school math, the energy for you and your spacesuit to go to orbit. Hope this doesn't lose everybody. It's mgh, mass times gravity times height, potential energy, and then 1/2 mv squared kinetic energy to get you to orbit. And you can calculate the amount of energy. And if you went and you bought it off the electric grid,
like that actual amount of energy,
at 7 cents a kilowatt hour, do you know how much energy it would take in dollars to get you and your spacesuit to orbit?
Is it less than 250,000?
It's $120. So $120.
So where's the imbalance here? Is it just the proving of the system over time?
It's the inefficiency of rocket engines. It's the inefficiency. So if you had a winch on orbit that could winch you up,
right?
The whole space elevator concept.
I'm
just saying there's a lot of improvement.
Not to get too off topic, but do you think the space elevator is that just sounds like the most ludicrous concept?
Dude, we're gonna have so many other breakthroughs before then. I'm not the politics of wrapping something around the planet 10 times.
Why hasn't somebody figured out anti-gravity yet? I just don't. Aren't we there yet, guys? Can't we?
Yeah, you just haven't been trying hard enough, pal.
I guess not. I've got my eyes on other innovations.
So, I think we are. The amazing thing is we're living during an extraordinary time in human history where the technology to think about this, where we've got 20 teams building private robots to land on the moon. It's only been 3 countries, right? The Soviet Union's not there anymore. U.S. and China has ever been to the lunar surface.
Wait, I do want to talk about that for a second. So we've got 20 teams competing to land on the moon first. What's going to happen when they all arrive there? Is it going to just be a territory run? Is it going to be far and away where everyone's riding horses and stamping in flags? Tom Cruise, Nicole Kidman's picture. I think Ron Howard directed
So I think that of the 20-odd teams, a half dozen of them are serious. They're building hardware. And they'll make a shot.
What's the plan when they get there?
The plan is take photos and YouTube videos. And it's the plan.
Let's send Fred from Nickelodeon there. If all we're trying to do is rack up views, I don't know. I think
honestly, the plan is to use entrepreneurship to bring down the cost of exploration. Because today it's only been possible by 3 countries.
Would anybody be mining it though? Would anybody be making use of the resources
of
the moon?
I think that resources from the moon eventually will be an option. Obviously we've put our bet at Planetary Resources on resources from asteroids because the moon is a religious object for some nations. It's it's a little bit more sensitive than a rock, of which there are 60 million of them. Sometimes they come and hit us, and that's not a good thing. So we're gonna hit back.
I like that theory. So what does that mean? At some point, could you ride the asteroid though? Could you land on it, Dr. Strangelove style with a hat and I
wonder if it's time for questions and
answers from the audience. How did you feel the first time you went into zero gravity? Like, what was that experience like for you?
So you have to understand, I had in 1993, I started asking NASA if I could fly in their zero-G airplane, and the answer was no. I said, can I volunteer? No. Can I stow away? No. And after I got told no like a dozen times, I say, well, screw you, I'll just start my own zero-G company. And little did I know it would take 11 years to get FAA approval for something NASA had been doing for 30 years. And when I finally got a chance to go and do this, I was in the back of the 727. And thank you. It's good. It's good. I'm very sensitive to wine.
In the back of the 727.
And I started running as we started going into a zero-G parabola, and then all of a sudden I realized momentum is, a really bad thing when you're in weightlessness.
Do you guys understand what the concept is of the parabolic plane? So it goes, it does a bunch of these, and every time it goes up, you're pinned to the base of the plane, and then as it does this, you're weightless. So depending on how many
30
times
seconds.
Depending on how high and how many times you hit, you get several instances of 30 seconds of weightlessness, and within that time, you learn a lot. You learn a lot. I got to do that trip once, and I learned a lot in those 13 instances of 30 seconds.
All right, it's a lot of fun.
It really was. I could not more highly recommend that experience to anybody.
No. So, honestly, it's we are living in an extraordinary time, and I don't, I think whatever is not prohibited by the laws of physics, the number of innovators that we have on this planet is exploding, with access to artificial intelligence and robotics and 3D printing. And so almost anything and everything is possible. You mentioned our tricorder XPRIZE, which I think is really cool, right?
Me too.
So we're in the middle of this. Paul Jacobs, the chairman of the Qualcomm Foundation, underwrote this. And we're asking teams around the world to build, basically a handheld mobile device that a mom or a dad could use at 2 o'clock in the morning when their kid is sick, that you can talk to. It's got artificial intelligence on the cloud. You can cough on it, can do the RNA or DNA analysis of the bacteria in your sputum. You can do a finger blood prick and can diagnose you better than a team of board-certified doctors. And it's extraordinary. So we had 330 teams enter that XPRIZE, right? On an XPRIZE, we set this audacious goal, and we say, I don't care where you're from, where you've gone to school, whatever you've done, the first person to do this wins. And so this was build that device, and we're down to the top 20-odd teams, and we expect a winner that we'll probably announce in January 2016, I think is the date, because it's the 50th anniversary of Star Trek.
Somebody's going to do it is the point.
Yeah.
You get enough crowdsourcing in that way. I think we've all learned this from just the modern entertainment devices, all the crowdsourced entertainment. Like, people like to get together to make a result, especially in innovation on that level. It challenges people.
Yeah.
Not just the attractiveness of the prize, but the accomplishment, I would think.
So, alien life, yes or no?
Yes. The category of which has yet to be defined. Like whether it's something that eats arsenic or whether it's something that's evolved to, spaceflight observation. How would I know? They haven't kidnapped me, guys. They didn't put anything in my field, so.
I'm not going to go there.
Guys, we could shoot the shit about all kinds of stuff, honestly.
What do you think? Open up for questions?
Is it that time? Do you guys have a lot of questions? Is this going to get awkward as we open it to questions and nobody asks anything? This guy right in the front with the glasses? Let's hear it.
Please wait for the mic.
Please wait for the mic.
Oh, wait for the mic.
Some guy named Mike is coming.
Feel free to press charges.
When I was a kid, I remember like Aquaman's lair and all the underwater, the deep
Aquagum, dude. I want Aquagum so bad.
Yeah, the deep ocean stuff. Is there an XPRIZE for building a space station underwater?
Cameron's got that wrapped up. He's all over that.
So, in all honesty, oceans is probably one of our most active areas. So, back in 2010, Jim Cameron had just joined our board of trustees. And do you remember the BP oil spill going on? And on, and on, and on. And so he said, time for you guys to do a FLASH, F-L-A-S-H, XPRIZE. And we looked at it and said, we can't cap the spill, but maybe we can figure out how to capture the oil on the ocean surface faster, so it doesn't like go to the ocean, to the coastline and muck up the environment. And we ran an XPRIZE. Wendy Schmidt, who runs the Schmidt Family Foundation, her husband's Eric Schmidt, the chairman of Google, raised her hand and funded it. And the teams that competed for that were extraordinary. And the winning team improved the oil spill cleanup rate 600%. For an industry that's $1 trillion industry that had not changed how you clean up oil spills in 20 years. What the, WTF, right? So
it's not really their priority, though.
And so on the heels of that, Wendy loved the experience so much because it was so effective. She said, "Hey, let's do another one." And we now have active. We have an amazing guy, Paul Bungie, who's our head of oceans. We have a ocean health XPRIZE right now, which is measuring pH. So one of the silent killers are that the ocean is getting acidified. And the problem is we don't understand how much where. All we know is that the coral reefs, the shellfish, are unable to create their shells in an acidic environment. The calcium carbonate doesn't form properly. So we are having an XPRIZE for the creation of very accurate, very low-cost pH sensors that operate in coastlines and at depth, so we can actually measure, because you can't measure something, you can't impact it. And what we've done as an organization is we've committed to a sequence of 5 ocean XPRIZes. And so we're looking for the next 3. We're open to ideas. Maybe it's rapidly mapping the ocean floor. Maybe it's undersea communications. I don't know what it is. But yes, as much as I'd love to do 1,000 space XPRIZes, we're also doing a sequence of ocean XPRIZes.
But to answer your question, yes, Peter and I are going to build some kind of underground volcano lair that has an access off the Malibu coast in that huge shelf they just discovered. We're going to figure out what those pillars are.
Don't go to the
cruise down
sharks
there.
and lasers, okay? Just stop there.
He's got it. You in the back.
Any questions?
Wait for the microphone.
wait for
Hold
this
on.
mic.
We've already been scolded.
Mike's coming.
My question is, wow.
That's how Mariah Carey feels. Just like that. Oh, wow.
How are you doing with the XPRIZE in India?
Great question. So, you want to tell? No, just kidding.
Sure. Well, everybody understands, of course, India is a beautiful place, full of rich with culture and people. I should probably not take this.
So we have, a number of categories we do prizes in: exploration, which is space and oceans; health and life sciences, which is actually our largest area. A lot of stuff working in Alzheimer's and organogenesis and a whole kidney disease, a whole bunch of different areas. Energy and environment, and then learning and global development. And it got to a point where it was almost laughable that we would think about designing XPRIZes for Africa and India and the developing world sitting in our beautiful Southern California offices. And we made a commitment as a management team to actually begin our first operation outside the United States, and with the amazing support of a team led by Ratan Tata. Ratan is the chairman of Tata Industries, represents 10% of the GDP of India. Amazing family, 100 companies. Naveen Jain, Paresh Galani, who's living here in Los Angeles. We had the capital to start this, and we hired an amazing woman, Xenia Tata, who runs that. We are opening up XPRIZE India this year. We have a big visioneering in December. And we're talking about XPRIZes, for example, for transforming health and water, cleaning up the Ganges. I mean, amazing things. So I'm really excited. And India will become our hub to enter the rest of MENA, China, other parts of the world. So really thrilled about that. It's some of our most important work we're doing.
Which is just a question about that, because one of the things that I saw at the Singularity University was Dean's innovation, the clean water innovation. Do you know where that is?
So Dean came in. Everybody know who Dean Kamen is? He's probably one of the most prolific, brilliant inventors on the planet. Over 1,000 patents to his name. Unfortunately, you know him as the guy who invented the Segway. His inventions are phenomenal in terms of health, and he's invented 2 devices. One that takes any form of combustible material and generates energy, but another one called Slingshot, which has 2 hoses. One hose goes into anything wet, the Pacific Ocean. the latrine, arsenic-infected water. Out the other hose comes water so pure it meets the medical standards for injectable water. It operates on 100 watts of energy, less than a hairdryer. It generates 1,000 liters a day. And it's been so phenomenal that Muhtar Kent, the chairman of Coca-Cola, is committed after it's undergoing a test period to put this in every village around the world. And so this is part of what I write
it's solar
about.
powered. It's solar powered. It has a computer function. It would allow like remote villages to have access to the internet on a solar based system, and it provides clean water in the what was it like several gallons a day, right?
1,000 liters a day.
I was so knocked out by that. It just like made me cry at the hope that gives us in the simplest of ways, like soft clean water. That's such a big deal.
Half of the world's disease burden is due to unclean drinking water. Half. Put every other major disease together, and it doesn't come close to the medical burden of unclean water. Another question, please. Mike, you decide. I'm still getting giggles from that joke. Please.
Yeah. So you're a big proponent of the tournament design, right, for innovation, that whole XPRIZE foundation. And you said earlier, Seth, if I may, that this is a collaborative effort, but it really isn't, right? Because these people are competing for a prize. So my question is, what happens to those losers who maybe have innovations in their work that could be used going forward? Are they compensated for this because they're doing this at huge risk to themselves, right?
So would you call team sports collaborative or competitive? It's the same thing. So in other words, the notion is, first of all, absolutely, we are genetically bred to compete. That's where we do our best work, whether it's looking for your date tonight, or whether it's whether it's basically going out in sports or in business, or whatever the case might be. We do, and so it's about taking that same energy and applying it to solving the world's biggest problems. Now, of course, the teams that come together, there are very few of our XPRIZEs which are one-person teams, right? The average probably size, Eileen, I don't know if you want to take a guess, 50-person teams maybe. And they facilitate and work together.
And they spend their own money to try and achieve the prize.
raise the capital. But at the end of the day, I remember when the Ansari XPRIZE for $10 million was being won, and we interviewed the teams. Every one of them said, listen, the best thing could be if I won. The second best thing is that someone else wins. Because in the winning of this, it changes everybody's minds about what is possible. It creates heroes, capital flows in, the laws change. And so what we're doing with these prizes, it's like a lightning strike to clear the road for a whole new flock of entrepreneurs to kick ass, take names, and change the world. So the final thing I'll say is when we design an XPRIZE, our mission is, first of all, we might have a first, second, and third place prize now. So a number of teams go forward. But our mission is to launch an industry, not award a historic moment. How was that?
That was good. That was good. That was
like
good.
it.
I think everybody agreed. They bought it.
Cool.
Totally. You, sir, with the glasses that's close to the microphone.
And we have another question down here as well.
Okay, we'll grab that.
Yeah, thank you. First, I want to thank both of you for doing what you're doing.
Thanks.
Creating change is a fantastic challenge. Unfortunately, we also live in a time when change is creating change. So climate change is creating change, and we're creating climate change. So we have to change how it is that we change things. So
sounds reasonable.
I'm in the third do loop here. But
well, this is just
I'm still tracking it.
Okay, so changing how you change things. So Elon Musk is changing how things are changed, right?
Absolutely.
So how do you scale then? An X squared prize to accelerate the change in regard to, say, getting more electric vehicles, in regard to, say, getting off of the carbon cycle as much.
Some of that's people. You know, we're a demand-based society, and a lot of our demand is based on our familiarity with any economy. We're hesitant to learn new things, but once we learn new things, they're integrated. You know, something like the electric car. I think it was as simple as making it look good. You know, I remember when the first electric cars came out, and Ed Begley Jr. was telling everybody that we don't, pray to the sun, we're gonna die, and just thinking, well, they just don't look cool. I don't want to drive that. It doesn't look good. It's not gonna be fun to drive. And I drove a Prius I bought it in 2004, and I didn't get rid of it until I got my Tesla in 11, I guess. And even when I was driving that Prius, I'm like, this isn't entirely safe. Like, I'll take a turn too tight or come off a handicapped driveway and it shows slippery conditions and
So I
there's no acceleration. And I just think, that vehicle's not making a great case for the electric car. Whereas you sit in a Tesla, you push that pedal, even though it's not the gas, you're like, oh shit, this is a vehicle. And so I think that's going to change the way that we as a culture respond to the notion of an electric car. Something being cool, something being interesting, something being more than just good for you and practical. Nobody wants to take vitamins, but if those vitamins are sexy, you're going to take a handful of them.
So there's three things. The first is myself, Elon, Ray Kurzweil, a number of folks believe that we will exceed 50% energy in the U.S. from solar in the next 15 years. I really do believe that. I think
part of that is people being willing to adapt to it.
It's about actually making a product that is cheaper and better. I think ultimately the only way that we're going to change things is economics, and that in order for you to have, people really want to say they do nice things and so forth, and I stopped eating yellowtail for a while. But the fact of the matter is, until it's cheaper and easier and better for you, it's going to be tough. But we're heading very much in that direction. The second thing is, for one of the XPRIZes we're working on right now is a carbon XPRIZE, for example, and it goes to this model directly. This is an XPRIZE that goes to all coal plants, right? And we all the stats of how many coal plants are being built per month or per week in China. Yet if you take them down here, it doesn't matter. So imagine if you had an XPRIZE that said to an innovator, hook up to the smokestack of a coal plant where you have high CO2 effluents, high temperature, high concentrations, and use that CO2 to manufacture a product who's more valuable than the cost of capturing the CO2. So you make it a profit center. So every coal plant, not because they're environmentally nice, but because it's in their economic best interest, will hook one of these things up, right? That's the kind of thinking that we're trying to aim at. And the final thing is we're entering a period, these next 7 years, these next 6 years are a very special period. I don't think people get it, how special it is. In the next 6 years, we are going in 2014, that's the year we're in, right?
Yeah.
2014 through 2020.
We just stepped out of a DeLorean.
I forget what's the while.
I've got a suitcase full of cash from all different time periods, so.
In the next 6 years, we're going from about just now 2.2 billion people connected on the internet to 5 to 7 billion people connected. We're adding 3 to 4 to 5 billion people on the internet. So what does that mean? I thought
it means every kid under 10 has a phone.
I thought they were juggling wine there. I was like, whoa.
That would have been impressive.
It means that the world is coming online, and the world is going to want what we have. And there's an interesting situation, which is that the poorest parts of the planet are also the sunniest parts of the planet. Very interesting. And so I think there's going to be an explosion in global solar, where the demand and the production and the investments and the science are going to change everything. We had an environmental problem 120 years ago, and it happened in the late 1890s as people started to move from the rural areas into the cities, and they brought their horses with them. And as the density of people inside the cities of Manhattan and Chicago and LA and San Francisco, whatever, started to build up, so did the horse shit. And you can read back then the articles, I write about this in abundance, where the amount of horse manure was growing at such an epic rate that it was causing disease. And people would redesign the stoops of their homes so that the stoops were raised a few feet for the horse manure to run down when it rained. And the projections were epic until something happened. The car came along. And the car was such an advancement over a horse that it displaced horse as the motive power. And so until we create the technology to displace coal and oil, and those are very wealthy companies with lots and more supplies being discovered all the time. But guess what? There is a technology that can be cheaper, more available to all, and that is solar. And so I do believe we're heading that way. We're working on a battery XPRIZE as well to increase battery energy densities 300%, because once you do that, that solves it as well. So there are lots of different angles here. And whether it's capturing CO2 from smokestacks, solar energy, battery energy densities, there are mechanisms. All it takes is, one snap. We forget how rapidly things change on this planet. And we're resistant to change as humans. We like waking up in the morning and knowing the world is the same way as it was the night before. But then, something happens and we have a new technology and we're like, it like ripples through society. And all of a sudden we're like, do not take that away from me.
It's true, 15 years ago it was all about Tetris, and now it's nonstop Candy Crush.
My point exactly. Okay. Next question, please.
This guy's got something.
Microphone. Got the microphone. I'm official. Back in the day, in the 60s, they had this little thing called a turbine car. Chrysler came up with one, and it was an amazing little car. And it had clean, I would say exhaust and stuff like that. And Ford came up with a turbine engine for trucks. And that would be perfect. I mean, it would be not exactly, electric or solar yet, but it would be a perfect stopgap. Unfortunately, basically Chrysler and Ford gave up on it, and they haven't done anything. And the other thing that just came up, they're supposed to have electric Formula One teams coming up pretty soon. Mm-hmm. I don't know where it's gone.
That 0 to 60 in the Tesla is so fast.
Oh, yeah.
I'd pit it against any combustion engine as far as being able to step off the block. But, I think it just comes back to you make it appealing, you make it inexpensive. And that's what Elon talks about with Teslas. Those first cars are luxury cars, so they're appealing to what he called tastemakers or people that would afford to invest in a new technology and sort of prove its viability. And by, I think it was 16, they're talking, because they have the X coming out in 15, and then it isn't the $35,000 model projected for 16?
And then they've got autonomous vehicles by 2017. So, we're going to see every major car company is announcing autonomous vehicles, which is another part of the revolution, right? Because if you've got autonomy, something interesting happens. I don't know if you guys realize the implications of autonomous vehicles.
Has anybody seen that video, by the way, of the passengers in the Google driving car proving the track? The car's driving like over 45 miles an hour in a like slalom track, and it's two guys in the back of the vehicle that has no driver. And this is one of my favorite videos because I can't remember who did the talk. I bet
Salim.
Salim, yeah. So that quote was one of my favorites. So we watched this video, and it's these guys like taking selfie videos of them just going, ah! And then showing the pedals, adjust the wheel turning, the window, how fast they're moving, and then back to them just, ah!
But the first time the autonomous elevator did that, the guys were in the elevator going, ah!
Well, that's what he says. So you hear the scream. He says, do you hear that scream? The scream of these human beings reacting to this new driving technology, this robot capability. He says that is the visceral sound of the human being responding to a vision of the future. That is what it looks like. And I thought that was really impressive.
So I'm going to go back to what I was saying a moment ago.
Oh, sure, go ahead. About everybody having autonomous driving vehicles.
So what's interesting is if you have autonomous vehicles, now I know how many folks here have an SUV? Okay, and
how many of you have an H3?
That's so last decade. Anyway, but if an SUV, 5,000 pounds, driving around a person 150 pounds, it's ridiculous. Right, and you're in the 5,000 pound SUV to protect yourself against the 7,000 pound SUV, the H3 or whatever it was. Anyway, with autonomous cars, they don't crash. Autonomous cars don't crash, so you don't need all that weight around you. You can have a vehicle that weighs 1/5 or 1/10 of the weight. The second thing is if your autonomous cars are don't crash, and frankly you don't park them. You don't have garages or driveways anymore. They drop you off and they go do something useful instead of hanging out and depreciating 97% of the time, right? And if you have autonomous cars, you can fit 8 times as many on the roads because of packing densities. So you don't have to build new roads. And of course, you get back all of your time because you can tweet, sleep, talk,
do your hair or your makeup,
make out, whatever the case might be. In your autonomous car as you're driving around. So it changes the world. So I have 2 3-year-old boys, my wife Kristen and I, and chances are that they're not going to get a driver's license. They're going to be
it's crazy to consider.
But it's true because there will be autonomous cars as the baseline, and we're going to forget what it was like. And that
people will consider it like barbaric that you drove yourself. You know what I mean? It would be like being asked to drive the subway. That's.
We had some other questions here.
Oh wait, the
down
one
here. Yes.
Oh, I have the microphone.
Okay.
Sure.
Microphone rules. Yes.
We'll get back.
This is really fascinating, by the way. Thank you so much for being here.
Oh,
I
thanks.
Just wanted to know your
We were
thoughts
nervous. Nobody would think it was interesting.
Or it would show up.
about the Hyperloop.
Yes.
Your thoughts?
About the
Hyperloop.
Hyperloop?
Well, the
Elon's-
Hyperloop, you know, he's one of those guys that when he says something, even if it sounds crazy, you got to go, well, maybe, you know, maybe it could work.
So
and I think it's pneumatic, right? Isn't that
So
the
the
idea? It's all
Hyperloop
air-powered?
is
Or is it magnets?
it's an older idea. I think what Elon did was bring it back into focus and fashion and came up with a design. It is hydraulic. It is pneumatic. I'm sorry. It is basically a vehicle going through a tube of air. It's a great idea. It is very doable, and it's something I think that will be seriously attempted this decade.
You talking about
Elon has basically said he says, you know, he's just way too busy right now, but others will take it on.
You talk about the efficiency of travel, you know, closing the communication gaps between us as a species, being able to go
Listen,
from
the
place to
idea
place.
of building a new road system between LA and San Francisco is pathetic. I mean, it's a ridiculous thing. It's like, well, let's build, you know, horse and buggy between the two.
Let's get a tire swing.
Or a slide.
Zip line,
Cool.
different relays.
Yeah, suborbital flights.
It's about as useful. A suborbital flight. That'd be like a 6-minute flight.
No, I mean, but seriously, and Eric Garcetti, who I love, I consider one of the most smartest mayors around. We've had that conversation. He said by the time you would finish building this multi-billion-dollar roadway, you'd have autonomous cars, which would displace the entire need for it in the first place.
That's what's exhausting to me, like living in LA for almost 20 years and watching the consistent influx of new people, how the population has boomed and how, you know, the city planning has tried to address it and how we spend 3 to
Smaller
5 years.
people.
Well, it's just we spend 3 to 5 years like widening a roadway, and in those 3 to 5 years, hundreds of thousands of new citizens, single driver cars move to Los Angeles. It's just you outrun any of your progress by the time it's completed. It seems like such a waste.
Down here, please.
Thank you, Mike.
Peter and Seth, thank you so much for being here.
Pleasure.
Thanks for you for being here.
I had a couple of questions about the exponential curve in abundance. Number one, I mean, in the exponential curve, I mean, in the book you talk about how getting to the moon was the first phase of an exponential curve. But as you can see, we basically flattened out for the next 45 years. So how do you know that we are now at a point where we are back at a point where we will make significant progress?
So
that's the first part of the.
I was just going to say it has more to do with the political interest. Like the reason there was such a space race is because there was a genuine competition amongst countries. And it was at a time when we knew so little about each other that was more fear-based and believing that we had to have a strategic military position on the moon before the Russians got it, lest they should aim a weapon of mass destruction back at our own planet, which seems like the most insane thing. If you were an alien observing, you saw a space base with a rocket aimed back at your planet, you'd think, what a bunch of fucking idiots. But these days, because it's been privatized and because there's so much more emphasis on the possibility, the potential of all the resources available to us, there's more private industry interested in pushing that exploration further. That's why I think it's happened
Were
more
you
now.
talking about the technology?
I mean, you do describe an exponential curve where you talk about going from like powered flight to the race to the moon and how the logic made sense because it was an exponential curve. But then it pretty much flattens out.
So it has flattened out, and I guess the question is: are you talking about the exponentials of transportation systems, or about opening up the space frontier?
More about the fact that exponential curves in technology could be tempered out by real world
laws of physics.
It's like working out. You go to the gym for 6 months straight because you want to hit a certain level, and then eventually you plateau. You got to do something else to shake it up, or else you're not going to get your triceps to pop out the way you want.
So listen, I was
You
going
gotta
to say
change your
that, but
system
I-
if you want it to
come
push
up with
further.
something new. So listen, the current propulsion systems for spaceflight, we haven't invented warp engines yet. If that's what you're alluding to, that's true.
Ionic disruptors
I'm
and such.
kind of pissed about it, but we haven't yet. But what we are doing is, at least that I know of. I mean, it could be that some lab someplace has them and just haven't told me yet.
I like to think there's super soldiers in a bunker somewhere that are learning how, remote viewing and how to withstand getting hit by trucks, but I can't.
But I'll tell you,
prove
I'll
it.
give you one very cool thing. My business partner Craig Venter, who sequenced the first human genome, created the first synthetic life form. One of the projects he's recently done with DARPA and with NASA is about beaming life at the speed of light. So here's the concept. You can actually go into a lab and sequence a life form, a virus, a bacteria, in a few minutes. The ATCs and Gs, the 4 nucleotides of life, and sequence that in a few minutes. And get that sequence of 1 million base pairs, 10 million base pairs, and then you can transmit that sequence. If you found a life form on Mars, the old way of doing it was you'd have to build a rocket there and send that life form in a little vial back to Earth, and it'd come to a lab. Now, instead, what you do is on Mars, you sequence the life form, you transmit it back at the speed of light to a P4 lab where that sequence is reassembled now into a string of DNA and put into a blank cell to boot up. So you actually have that life form all of a sudden come at the speed of light. So, it's not quite full-up transporter yet, but...
Because it's not necessarily the same...
I just think it's kind of cool.
It's super cool. It's not necessarily the same consciousness. It's the same genetic makeup.
Yeah.
It's really neat.
Come on, I'm reaching.
Yeah, no, I like it. I'm on board, man.
Thank you.
Where do you want to go?
Got up there.
There's a
we
guy
got
right on the
there.
corner. Might be good for you.
Please.
He's on the corner.
Hi, guys. All right, so as a couple of film majors sitting here, we have to take the science and the film and make a hybrid question for you guys. So you talked a little about how there's a lot of negativity in the media and all that whatnot. A lot. Too much.
And in science fiction movies.
Exactly. And I mean,
Pisses me
I went to a museum at one point and they did like a big sci-fi thing, and my dad and I are big, Trekkies, and so we had a great time. There was a hall, and on one side were all the ideas that were brought up in Star Trek, and on the other side were all of those ideas brought to fruition by actual scientists. And it was amazing to think that this positivity led people to make these types of things. So I guess my question is, what is XPRIZE and Hollywood, for Seth, representative here, trying to do to encourage millennials, people who are on their iPhones all the time, to try to pursue those new ideas for positive visions of the future?
Can I go first?
Yeah, please.
Yeah. So, first of all, I would say that XPRIZE is very much trying to reach millennials. In fact, if you go to the back and you get one of these little loop cards with our team, you can find out we're trying to actually increase the number of people who care about the world, who want to get involved. And this is the mechanism my Alliance's amazing team here has put together. So go find out about Loop and how you can get involved in it. But it's about giving people a chance to actually solve their problems. I believe that we're heading to a world where you can stop complaining about shit and start solving it, right? Because it used to be that thousands of years ago, it was only the kings and queens who could solve big problems. 100 years ago, 200 years ago, it was the industrialists. Today, it's all of us. I don't care who you are. If you have a problem that you are passionate about and care about, you can solve it. You may not want to try hard enough. You may not want to, slug at it for 11 years. But today, money's not an issue. There's crowdfunding. Even technology is crowdsourcing. You can go and find the people who care about it with you, band together, and go and solve that problem. What XPRIZE is doing is trying to put bullseyes on the problems that we think should be solved that have not been solved yet, and say, I don't care who you are, where you went to school, solve this problem, and incentivize teams to come together collaboratively and compete like hell to go and solve that problem. Your turn.
Well, I can't really speak for Hollywood. I've always, even though I've been involved in mass things, I've always been a little bit on the outside. For myself, my goal is to make stuff that I believe in, stuff that I like, stuff that I think is positive or important or funny or valuable in some way or another. And I like to find people that want to make the same kinds of things, and I like to empower them to make stuff if that's possible, or if we share the same perspective. So that's really what I'm trying to do. I think it's easier to change people's minds through subversive entertainment than it is through basic education. Like, telling somebody what they need is always a little more frustrating than watching something cool that makes them go, I never really thought about it that way. That's, you know, somebody told me a long time ago, hey, you know how the world changes? Somebody tells somebody else something. It's as simple as that. And so I hold on to that philosophy.
Something.
Wait a minute.
Way in the back. We got a few.
Look at Mike taking steps 2 at a time. That guy knows how to pop out his triceps, I'll tell you what.
Thanks for doing this. I read Abundance, great book.
Thank you.
My question
You're the
is
guy.
the bottom billion that you talk about, they're coming up both economically and, as you said, they're going to be online soon. So where does that put us as Americans? Because, I mean, it's kind of a world-centric view that the bottom billion's coming up, but it seems like we're starting to come down as far as our middle class and our economy.
So really important. And, you know, the fact of the matter is just because we've been at the top of the sort of socioeconomic pyramid does not mean we will always be. We have to deserve it. We have to maintain the American spirit. We need to maintain what made us great and grow that to remain that way. I do believe that as 3 billion people, I call them the rising billion versus the bottom billion, come online, they're going to inject tens of trillions of dollars into the global economy. And I think that we're going to, you know, I tell CEOs of Fortune 500 companies, if they're not your customers, they're your customer's customer, your customer's customer's customer. And one of the things that's interesting is those 3 billion people now will have access to extraordinary learning capability, right? We're getting ready to launch a global learning XPRIZE. Imagine a piece of software that can take any child anywhere on the planet who's illiterate and teach them reading, writing, and numeracy in 18 months, or at least basic reading, writing, numeracy, right? And now the internet opens up to you. And now those people online have access to AI and cloud computing and 3D printing and cloud printing and all of these things. So we're going to start to see a lot of innovation that used to come out of the labs, now coming out of individuals working in virtual labs, on Google Labs, whatever the case might be, who might be in the middle of Tanzania. So there's going to be an explosion of innovation. So the world is going to change dramatically. And I think we as I would best describe myself as sort of a libertarian capitalist here in America, right? I've started 17 companies. I love entrepreneurship. This is the most entrepreneurial country in the world. It doesn't mean it'll always be. And I think it's important to keep that edge and to keep that, that vibrancy that anything is possible. You know, the fact that we haven't had structured classes, that you can fail and start again. These are the basic tenets that allow entrepreneurs to thrive here. And so keeping those alive are very important. But I think it's important for us to have a little bit of fear. I think it's important for us to be, you know, to be in a little bit of competition, to not take it for granted.
I agree with you. I think it's critical. The more it's not that we should feel like a paranoia that we should always be looking over our shoulder for who's trying to surpass us, as if someone's going to take our jobs. But definitely
that's AI and robots. But
but definitely like maintaining innovation and a healthy sense of competition, I think, is important. Who's got it? We got that guy.
All right, we got a large hand over there, looming. It's your reach.
Hello.
We're jealous.
Hey, what's up?
Hey, what's up?
How's it going?
I have a question about connecting the dots for space tourism. I was very interested in what you were saying earlier about the space elevator is already kind of an obsolete technology with other options that are out there. So I was wondering if you could walk us through, like, 5-10 years from now, does planetary resources bring in enough asteroids? And then do we have electric reusable rockets? What does that look like, and at what point do you think critical mass for transportation, resources, and economic opportunities come together for space tourism?
There's a lot of stuff that just hasn't been discovered yet. There's a lot of innovations that are going to come out of the basic privatization of the industry, and how many people are working against each other to figure out, a better means of getting there. But the truth is, you need something for people to do. You need something for people to get to. They're not going to, when people go check out the Grand Canyon, they enjoy the desolation for so long before they're like, all right, we got to camp or get a history lesson or something. Right? That's what I'm saying. You're not going to go to the moon unless there's something to do there. You're not going to go to Mars unless there's something to do. There won't be tourism unless there's something for tourists to do.
So let me give you the numbers as I know them. Right now, the Soyuz is $50 million a flight to orbit. The Falcon 9 with a Dragon capsule, which carries
the SpaceX
7
rocket.
That's Elon's capsule on top of a Falcon 9 rocket, is cheaper than the Soyuz and carries 7 versus 3. So the price, when it becomes operational, will probably be in the $20 million, back to what Dennis Tito spent back before the price of labor in Russia went up. But that's still expensive. Now, when Falcon 9's first reusable stage, which represents probably 2/3 of its cost, becomes fully reusable, the price can come down. But it's not until you get to real economies of scale. So one thing that Elon's gone public on record with is the notion of taking people to Mars and back at $500,000 per seat within 15 years. And I wouldn't bet against him. So that's one thing. When you start to say, listen, we're going to colonize a new planet, how many volunteers are there? You'll have plenty. I haven't had this conversation with my wife yet, but... So the second thing that's going on,
15 years, I might even go.
When you look at history is the best predictor for me of the future, and what has always driven human expansion has been resources. It's driven transatlantic travel. It's driven the railroads being built. These asteroids that planetary resources are going after. We have our first launch this October, and then we have a launch every 6 months to a year. Our first asteroid target is in late 2016-17. These are trillion-dollar assets, worth trillions of dollars in construction materials, platinum, palladium, rubidium, platinum group metals, and fuels. And honestly, that's enough to drive true large investments, as it has with everything, whether it's offshore drilling, whatever the case might be. So it's either going to be the human colonization effort, or what I call, for the geeks in the audience here, an exothermic economic reaction.
I wonder if like the industry, the collection of whatever the resources are, is going to fuel the same way that mining communities, the way that entire townships or cities were built around an industry. If that's going to happen off planet, I can't imagine that.
Ours will be robots.
You think so?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think we'll have humans on Mars. I think we'll have colonies that are built. Everybody knows the work of Gerard K. O'Neill. But honestly, the robotics give you everything you could possibly want, along with AI for materials extraction from asteroids. It's kind of boring, 150 million miles to the side of the sun, no oxygen, no atmosphere.
Need a water slide or something to make it really worth your while. This guy on the corner.
I think we only have time for 2 more questions.
2 more questions. Maybe we get a speed round. Let's go.
Oh, geez, I was going to ask 2 questions.
Uh-oh.
I'll just ask him. You could pick which one you'd prefer to answer. The first is, how do you guys choose the amounts for the XPRIZE? Do you look at the industries and the problems you're trying to solve and try to figure out what's economic to get to a solution, or do you just pick a symbolic number and fundraise for it?
Great question. So it's a mix of how much money we can raise and how much we think a team has to spend. So, for example, right now, I'll mention we're in the middle of design and funding of a transporter XPRIZE. And the transporter XPRIZE is not a matter to antimatter or matter to energy converter, but imagine an electric, autonomous, quiet helicopter that can pick you up from Westwood and carry you to downtown LA, or pick you up and carry you to the beach, and is fully autonomous, fully safe, and so forth. So we've raised about half the money for that. We've raised about $5 million so far. Our goal is to get to $10 million total. Anybody who knows anybody who's interested, let me know. I'm totally serious about that. I think it's one of the coolest prizes we have. And
definitely want to buy one.
Yeah, I want to use one all the time.
That's just shy of a jetpack.
Yeah, it's the future of Uber, right?
Love that. Who's got it?
Last question.
Somebody's got to close it. Who's going to bring it? Who's going to bring it home for us? You haven't asked anything. Can you close it? All right, guy, bring us home.
Thank you. And you guys have shared a lot of ideas with us, and I really appreciate it. It's kind of a meta question. You know, the XPRIZE incentivizes great ideas to come and ideas that are solutions and everything. But moving forward, what do you think an ideal vision of ownership over ideas and ideas being shared, what do you think an ideal environment is?
Ooh, big question.
This is a complicated question. That's like that's an IP question versus an open source question, kind of.
Yeah.
It's hard because
you're a creative, you're an artist.
Yeah. Well, you know, you want to own things and you want to innovate things and you want to create a technology that other people can use in mass, and that's the easiest way to make money. But the truth is, if you ever want anybody to evolve something, you got to share information and collaborate, because it's the pool of your collective intellect that's going to push any industry forward. It's challenging each other as opposed to somebody being so concerned with taking the financial ownership of the end result that they don't bother to actually innovate. You have to not care about what you earn, and you got to just care about changing the thing for it to work, don't you think?
Yeah, I mean, I'm an entrepreneur, and I care about the product of my mind and what I create, and I want to protect it and so forth. But at the same time, I think there's a fundamental shift happening in the next in this decade. You saw Elon give away open the patent portfolio for Tesla. I know a number of other companies that will be following suit. There's good economic reasons for why he's doing that. He doesn't want to be the only person building supercharge stations around. And if there are lots of car companies, and everybody will do it, and you'll have, instead of a Shell station, you'll have electric stations, and the predominance of cars. It's a smart notion. But here's the issue. When we're going forward, so I'm on the board of a company called 3D Systems. And 3D Systems is a 3D printing company. It's one of the top companies in the area. And we're heading towards a world where I can scan anything. I can scan this. I can scan that. I can scan any product. And if I put a device or an invention out into the universe, and someone, again, of those 5, 6, 7 billion connected people, look at the device and go, oh, let me scan it. Let me make a few modifications, upload it. The rate of innovation is going to explode. We ain't seen nothing yet. I think it's the proper English. We ain't seen nothing yet in terms of the rate of innovation that's going to be hitting our society. So I was on stage with two of the smartest people I know at Singularity University, Asteroid, who runs Google X, and Steve Jurvetson, who's at Draper Fisher Jurvetson. And we're talking about this and talking about product generations. And so right now, you know, an Apple or whomever, Microsoft or Google will put out a product, and every year or 2 years will put out a different product. But the rate at which those innovations, those product cycles are coming down, it's going to be at a point where a new product's going to be coming out every week. And the problem is that your next product cycle isn't coming from your company, it's coming from somebody else who invented it at the same time in parallel. And so tell me the Patent and Trademark Office is going to keep up with this. No. And so I think we're going to.
I used to see that patent pending on all the Popete commercials, so I know that schedule's got to be crazy.
So I think it's going to be. I think IP is going to be transformed out of necessity. So I also think that we're entering. I'll leave it on a positive note. That one of the places that people are going to innovate is everyone's going to go searching for problems. The world's biggest problems are the world's biggest business opportunities. Right? What a beautiful time to be alive. Want to be a billionaire? Help a billion people. So one of the things I think about is I'm tired of hearing about the giving pledge. I want to hear about the impact pledge. I want to hear about people's not commitment to give. I want to hear people's commitment to impact the world, to solve problems. Right? And I think that's what we can do. We can find problems, we can solve them, and make this an amazing planet.
It's a good planet. I like it.
I mean, you do want to leave, though, too, right?
Well,
thank you.
I want to check out other stuff beyond it, but I like our planet. Yeah. So I guess we can wrap up. Well, Peter, I will say it has been a pleasure getting to know you over the last several years. I've always been consistently impressed and inspired by you, and I love your outlook, your optimism, and your endless dedication to just making it a better world.
And Seth, your ability to take a conversation in 1,000 different directions just blows me away, pal.
Yeah, a bottle of red wine doesn't hurt.
I love you, buddy. Love you, guys.
Thank you, guys. Thank you so much.